Accountability is one of the biggest misunderstandings between anxious and avoidant dynamics. Anxious partners often want accountability quickly because accountability regulates them. The anxious needs to hear the avoidant communicate. They hurt them to feel better. When someone says, "You're right, I messed up, I'm sorry," the anxious nervous system settles, and those words calm them. It feels safe again. The threat is over. The bond is restored. But here's where it clashes. Avoidants cannot access clear thinking when they're physiologically overwhelmed or stressed to the max. When stress rises, the brain shifts out of the prefrontal cortex, the part responsible for logic, reflection, empathy, and accountability, and into the limbic system. The amygdala activates. That's the threat detector. Once that happens, the brain prioritizes survival over reasoning. In that state, they literally cannot think clearly in order to communicate what they need to take accountability for. It's not stubbornness, it's neurobiology. When the avoidant is stressed, the brain slows down their rational thinking process. An avoidant usually won't take blame for something they haven't fully processed yet. For example, if you say, "You hurt me when you didn't call me back," they don't immediately go to emotion the way an anxious partner might. They go to logic. In their mind, it's just a missed call. So they genuinely don't understand why it feels so big to you. It has nothing to do with them not caring. Things have to make sense to them. They need time to mentally walk through it and figure out why that moment affected you the way it did, because they don't like hurting people. Until they've thought it through and made sense of it in their own head, taking responsibility can feel confusing or even unfair to them. What feels emotional and obvious to you feels small and unclear to them, at least at first. When an avoidant feels attacked, pressured, criticized, or flooded with too much emotion all at once, their nervous system reads it as danger. Their heart rate increases. Cortisol rises. The body prepares to fight, flee, or shut down. Blood flow shifts away from the prefrontal cortex in the brain, which means less access to nuanced thinking like, "What did I do wrong? How did that hurt them? What should I own here?" Instead, the thoughts become, "This is too much. I need this to stop. I'm being attacked. I need space." Accountability requires regulation. You cannot self-reflect when your body thinks it's under threat. So when an avoidant says, "I need space," what they're often saying, without knowing how to articulate it, is, "I need my nervous system to calm down so I can access my thinking brain again." The problem is, the anxious partner hears space as abandonment or, "You just don't want to take accountability." And while the avoidant is trying to regulate, the anxious is dysregulating. The avoidant may need space to think clearly and won't communicate around this time, which may take a while. So what happens next? The anxious waits, but not calmly. They anxiously wait. And in that waiting, their nervous system spikes. The silence feels like they're getting rejected. They can't wait as long as it takes the avoidant to think because they're not self-regulating and their thoughts come from a place of pain. The delay feels like avoidance of responsibility. Their mind fills in the blanks. They don't care. They're never going to take accountability. I have to push for it or I'll never get it. And this is where accountability becomes a soothing tool. Instead of self-soothing, the anxious tries to regulate through the avoidant. "If you would just admit you were wrong, I'd feel better. If you would just apologize right now, I'd calm down." But that's outsourcing regulation. That's needing someone else to calm down. And the more pressure they apply, over-texting, long paragraphs, accusations, criticism, the more the avoidance nervous system escalates. They start protest behaviors. Protest behavior is when someone feels hurt, scared, ignored, or disconnected. But instead of calmly saying, "I feel hurt," it comes out as criticism, blame, or attack. We often see it in the comment section of attachment-style content creators. You don't want to take accountability. You're horrible. Now, the avoidant isn't just processing the original issue. They're processing being attacked. When messages turn into, "You never take accountability," "I knew you were like this," "You're horrible," "You're weak," "You always run," "You suck," "You're ridiculous," the avoidance brain fully shifts into defense. And here's the truth people don't like to hear. No one wants to take accountability while being attacked. They will likely not respond at all and just want out. To them, now it's toxic. Accountability requires psychological safety. Criticism removes psychological safety. Once the avoidant feels criticized or shamed, the brain moves into self-protection. Instead of thinking, "Maybe I hurt them," they think, "I need to protect myself. They aren't right for me." So they withdraw more because they don't need to own anything. Avoidants also process slowly. They tend to internalize, compartmentalize, and analyze internally before speaking. They don't think out loud the way anxious partners do. So when conflict happens, they need time to sort through. They will start to think, "What did I feel? What did they feel? What actually happened? Where did it go wrong? What part did I play in this? Or what could I have done better?" That internal sorting takes time, especially if they grew up suppressing emotions. Many avoidants were not taught emotional literacy. They weren't taught to name feelings quickly. So asking for instant accountability is sometimes asking them to access a skill they haven't fully developed. Meanwhile, the anxious partner experiences time as threat. The longer the silence, the louder the anxiety. So they push harder. But pushing harder delays accountability further. Because now the avoidant must first regulate from the attack before they can reflect on the issue. It becomes a loop. Anxious needs quick accountability to feel safe. Avoidant needs space and time to regulate and to think clearly. Anxious interprets space as avoidance. Avoidance interprets pressure as threat. Both escalate. Neurologically, when someone is under high stress, the sympathetic nervous system activates. The body is preparing for survival. In that state, higher order thinking, empathy, self-reflection, moral reasoning decreases. Studies show that stress impairs working memory and cognitive flexibility. You literally cannot process complex emotional information the same way. Accountability is complex emotional processing. It requires calm. It requires access to the prefrontal cortex. It requires feeling safe enough to admit fault without being annihilated. If, during that processing window, the avoidant is flooded with long emotional paragraph texts, accusations, and harsh language, their brain links accountability with pain. And when the brain links something with pain, it avoids it. So they stay away longer. And the anxious partner reads that as proof. See? They don't care. But often, underneath, the avoidant is thinking. Slowly. They may be replaying the conversation. They may be feeling guilt but not knowing how to approach it. They may be wrestling with pride, shame, and fear of more conflict. They may be afraid that whatever they say won't be enough. They also fear saying the wrong thing and hurting you worse. But they cannot access that clarity while dysregulated. That's why time matters. Time isn't always avoidance. Sometimes it's neurological necessity that an anxious mind wouldn't understand. Now, this does not mean avoidance should disappear for weeks with no communication. Healthy space includes reassurance. It includes saying, I need a day to think. I care. I'm not leaving. I just need to calm down. That's secure behavior. But the anxious partner also has responsibility. If you rely on someone else's apology to regulate your nervous system, you will always feel unstable because you're handing your calm to someone else. Self-soothing means learning to sit with, I'm hurt. I want accountability. I can't control when it comes. I can regulate myself while I wait. That doesn't mean tolerate disrespect. It means not escalating the situation into something bigger. Because once criticism and name-calling enter, the possibility of calm accountability drops dramatically. And with certain words said, it can't be taken back. You must watch what you say to your partner when you're dysregulated and come from a place of pain. An avoidant who might have taken responsibility after 24 hours of space may now stay gone for a week, not out of spite, but because their nervous system associates you with stress. If you hear stories of avoidance punishing you, that's not true. That's narcissistic behavior, and avoidants aren't narcissists. People get the behaviors of the two confused and wrong information tends to spread. So to recap, you'll often hear people say, avoidants don't take accountability. But if you're dealing with someone who wants you and has an avoidant attachment style, and they process conflict slowly, usually alone, it's not always that they won't take accountability. It's that they need time to understand what happened and how they contributed to it. If you're anxious and need immediate reassurance or resolution, that waiting can feel unbearable to you because you can't wait. And when the pressure builds, more texts, more conflict, more urgency, the avoidant can shut down completely. At that point, they're not thinking about accountability anymore. They're thinking about escaping the stress and the buildup of pressure that they feel in their body. When they feel overwhelmed or attacked, they may avoid the conversation altogether because their system reads it as too much, not as something they're refusing to own. When someone associates you with stress, they avoid you. So what's the balanced truth? I agree. People who hurt others need to take accountability. But you must also understand how your partner with a low capacity threshold handles things because everyone is different. Avoidance cannot think clearly while flooded under high stress. I also agree. Anxious partners deserve repair. But anxious partners must learn to regulate without demanding immediate soothing. The real work happens when both understand nervous systems. The avoidant learns to communicate when taking space. The anxious learns to give space without escalating things. Because accountability forced under pressure isn't true accountability, it's compliance. Real accountability happens when the nervous system is calm enough to be honest. And sometimes that takes longer than the anxious person is comfortable with. But if you want resolution instead of repetition, both people have to regulate first and then talk. Please like and subscribe for more. Thanks for listening.